I called it peace awareness yesterday, and that's kind of what I felt it was. And I was reminded last night when I made a small post on gratitude on Facebook, um, about the nature of these various principles. I've often used the analogy or metaphor of, if we shake an 8-ball, those like 8-ball little game things where you shake it and then there's a little screen, and obviously the mechanics of an 8-ball is there's a ball on the inside, or a hexagonal shape on the inside that has all these different sides to it, and then when you shake it, it appears a message or something on the little screen that you see. So the way I see the principles of creation, I often like to use the Galactic Science, Freedom Teachings, Virtues as a nice foundational staple of what the core principles of our governing experience are, whether that's gratitude and appreciation or acknowledgement or intimacy or love, compassion, integrity, respect, patience, humility, all the kind of core adjectives that we can use to describe the nature of God and the nature of ourselves. This is kind of like the 8-ball, they're all on this 8-ball, and each moment the 8-ball is shaken, and one of these principles is appearing maybe more than the others, because within creation, nothing is separate, everything is arising whole and complete, in the sense that whatever is necessary is already going to be there, right? So for instance, when you have to go to the bathroom, you're already standing up and walking to the bathroom. If there's a little puppy beside you, you're already putting your hand out to go and maybe pet the puppy or smile at the puppy. If there's a child walking down the street with their parents and you look at them, you're gonna, you naturally feel maybe a call to smile at them. So when we come back to the foundational aspects of reality, we see that there is no separation between subject and object. In fact, subject and object is more so an appearance. Everything is happening simultaneously and as is necessary. So when we understand these simple examples, we understand, well, how much choice do we really have in these dynamics? Or is it more so a choice to just surrender to the naturalness of these experiences, like going to the bathroom, petting the puppy, smiling at the child? These are all things that naturally occur without any real effort. Although there is effort that will be, expressed, but it doesn't feel like effort because you kind of observe the naturalness and the choicelessness on some level that occurs there. We could say that the unrighteous path, or the path that is out of alignment, it requires far more strain and apparent effort or feeling of choice. Like there's this separate doer and a separate experience, and I'm going to choose whether I'm going to smile at the child or not, whether I'm going to pet the puppy, whether I'm going to go to the bathroom. But we find that in all of these situations, when we are holding to that egoic expression, naturally we find ourselves in resistance, right? We find that we feel our grumpiness, or we feel I don't know, our constipation, and we don't get up and go to the bathroom, or just we feel like there's something off, right? We may feel the naturalness, that again, the natural mechanism of guidance will respond even to that. So if we don't act or surrender to the natural flow of things, we'll feel guilty, we'll feel sadness, we'll feel shame. And it's been kind of a common thing, where if you feel shame or you feel guilt, it's immediately a bad thing. It's like, not really. There's a difference between feeling shame and being shamed, or shaming ourselves. Shame, guilt, these are actually guidance tools, where if we feel something in that regard, maybe it's actually guiding us around our actions. Are we aligning to the naturalness of what I've described, where we understand we are an inseparable part with creation. We're not this separate being that, is calling the shots, if you will. Now, we have free will, of course. Simultaneously, we can understand, these two sides of the same coin are happening simultaneously. But we can kind of get the point. I think it's pretty clear what I'm saying here. I'm probably using too much words now, right? It's pretty clear. So in this regard, when we go back to the 8-ball example, and in one moment gratitude is appearing, or another moment patience is appearing, or another moment integrity, it's because the fractals of these principles, or when we look at the Kahlonic virtues, the attributes of these virtues are naturally manifesting in real time all of the time. We're constantly being fed with lessons. It's like we're never not in a lesson of virtue, because every moment requires a combination of these varying virtues in different quantities, right? Like, so in one moment, we may feel a rush of gratitude. So in that moment, we can see that by acknowledging what is before us, we feel a natural elation of gratitude just by way of attention. It's not necessarily like we're doing gratitude, like, oh, I got to sit and do my gratitude journal right now. Not necessarily, like when we really surrender into these things, they naturally appear in the moment that they're required. So it's more so an observance of this and a surrendering into the naturalness of these arising principles. And in that, we really receive the fullness of that lesson. Like, we're not rushing out of the lesson, let's say. So if we're, coming into a depth of feeling of patience, like, oh, this is what patience feels like. And oh, it feels right to be deeply patient in this moment. It's not so much a doing of patience. It's just recognizing, oh, I'm seeing that aspect of myself, which we are made up of the virtues, right? The virtues is a part of our anatomy, just like our fingers are or our hands are. So we're just acknowledging that aspect of ourselves, that we are this patience, we are this respect, we are this integrity, we are this mindfulness, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all really just a peaceful movement of awareness. Awareness is just arising with, the appearance of this 8-ball in every moment. So this can be quite difficult to grasp, especially if we're very attached to the idea of us being a separate doer in the world. Like, we're this separate being and we have to do all these things and make all these things happen for ourselves and for our life and for our personal development, for our spiritual path and for our growth. And there is truth to that. I mean, yes, you are an individual expression that has free will. And simultaneously, when we really actually investigating and inquire into the arising of each moment, like each moment just happening as it is, we see that, wow, I'm not actually controlling as many things as I think I am. And often when I'm in that mode of wanting or doing or resisting or this or that, I'm really actually creating a sense of separation between me and existence. And that may actually create some initial sense of safety or control, right? Like, oh, I feel safe because I'm controlling reality here, but you're really not, because reality always comes and humbles you again to truth. What is actually true, right? Like, you may have this idea about life or this want or this viewpoint or this perspective, but that may actually not be true. So when we kind of humble ourselves to the perceptions we're perceiving about things, it just inevitably always will lead to peace, right? To deeper peace. And I'm gonna post this on Instagram too. I posted this morning on Facebook about this question I got. He lives in BC, and he's noticing an increase in chemtrails. So not everyone here may be familiar with chemtrails, but it's a common topic in conspiracy land about, they're spraying us with all this gunk, all the planes that fly by with these long trails. It's all these chemicals and gunk and all this stuff that they're spraying on us. And, there is much truth to that. There's a lot of things being sprayed, but, as soon as we get into the relative world, especially in the terrain and the topics of, conspiracies and various other, associated related subjects, we may have gone into a lot of research and a lot of study and a lot of firsthand experience with these topics. It's not all just theory, as many of us have come to know. But also there is a lot of belief in them, even if we feel like we know absolutely that this is the way the world is, or this is what's happening, or this is what these planes are spraying on us, or this or that. In truth, it really is actually still belief, because if you were to say with 100% certainty that this is what's happening, or that is what's happening, or this is what's going on, you'd be lying, because it's not actually, you don't actually 100% know. So although you can get 99%, and that actually may be quite accurate, and often it is, and of course, knowing is more so a felt sense. So, who am I to say that you're just believing in it? But often if we actually inquire and we're honest with ourselves, it is still beliefs. And so anytime we're dealing with that, it's not that we can't navigate ourselves through life with beliefs, because that's actually can be quite practical. We also can see that can very quickly become a realm of very intense suffering. And often what we'll find is that the more that the mind is becoming active in trying to reinforce the validity of that belief and the truth of that belief, and the fact that we know absolutely that what we're observing is actually true and real, when we start to see that the mind's very active about it, and this can go for anything, we generally can draw the conclusion, which is another mind game, but that it's probably false in some regard. It's not entirely accurate, right? And that humbling lesson, where we understand that our beliefs are actually not necessarily what we view them to be, or they're not really actually what they're appearing as. That's very humbling, and it brings us back into that peace, like the weight comes off the shoulders, because there's a lot of weight associated with trying to hold on to beliefs and perspectives about things, especially in the land of conspiracies and all the evils that go on this planet, and every assumption that we make about anything that has even a slight similarity to whatever most recent rabbit hole that we've explored, right? Every single plane must be out to kill us. Like there's some killer pilot in there spraying us individually right now, because we just sat and did our meditation. They're probably tracking us with some technology, and now they've targeted us with a chemtrail instantly. Something like this. Obviously, that's not what most people are thinking on the conscious level, but actually subconsciously, that's probably pretty accurate. Right? Like when you start to draw general conclusions about all of these conspiracies and how they relate to you. And mainly, we have to be honest and real with ourselves, how they relate to our fear of death and our fear of being controlled and our fear of being annihilated. That's essentially at the core of what is being triggered every time we get angry and fearful about all of these topics. So it's not that we are to be ignorant and clueless about what's going on, but it's a very fine line between being ignorant and clueless and then being a fearmonger or being just consumed by these topics. I was consumed with them for many years. So part of it is just, it takes time to move through that phase of that anger and the resentment and all the emotional turmoil that comes up when we start exploring these subjects. But it's far more peaceful when you just give it up, or at least find a balance with it. Right. So I hope that makes sense. You can go read the post where I expand on that and what to do. And what to do is what we're going to engage right now is just a simple practice to just feel into ourselves and how we're doing right now, because that's all that really is. Whatever the topic is, whether we're triggered by the plane flying or by the 5G tower or by, I don't know, Bill Gates or the next vaccine or the next virus or whatever else is popping up, it will naturally be traceable. And by traceable, I think all of us here would understand this by now because we've all been in these sessions. Traceable in the sense that it is all traceable in the body somewhere. We will have a charge somewhere in the body that's in relation to that subject. So it's not that we become a robot, that the moment we send something in our reality and feel it here, we go instantly into the meditation. We can find ways to engage this action in real time. And one of the ways that we do this actually is just by being honest in our word, honest in our expression, right? Because often these things have to do with relationship. That could be a relationship to an entity or to an organization or to some leader, but also this is very relatable in relationship in personal dynamics, because where do most of these conversations come up? They come in conversations with friends and family and strangers and so-called enemies or whatever, where we have just differing points of view, differing fears and perspectives. And all of these situations are going to bring up emotion and bring up charges. So we're not going to have time in the moment to go and say, okay, just wait, let me neutralize this, in our meditation. We have to learn how to be honest in our communication. Because the way that we do this in real time, like what we've been doing every week in these meditations, by identifying and essentially coming to see what these sensations are actually, are they really the boogeyman outside, or are they actually just, sense trauma or charges that exist on many layers of our anatomy, including the deepest layers of our morphogenetic field, right, and the quantum layers. But in real time, in relationship, it's really about being authentic in our expression. telling the truth about how we actually feel in the moment, not delaying. Right. But, we have to go through that phase of learning to actually do this, because if, for the most part, when we feel emotional, we vomit our emotions at other people and project them and use, not so nice wording or phrasing in our expression, well, then this has to be reformulated. But the way that we reformulate that is by being authentic in how we actually feel and what is actually occurring, right? So for instance, if we feel charged by somebody, did they actually make us feel this way, or do we feel this way because of what someone has said, or what something has arisen, or what has just occurred in a situation? Two very different ways of communicating. You made me feel this way, or I feel this way when you share this, or in this moment, or how this is being expressed. This is what I'm feeling right now, and this is what I'd like to share about it, right? Or this is what I'm processing about it. Right. So sharing in real time like this is actually a beautiful practice, because it expresses authentically and vulnerably in a way that's not delaying what is. Like we have no judgments about the fact that we feel this way, and that's why we feel safe to share it in this way, right? Or express it in this way. But when we feel judgment around it, or fear or lack of safety, then that's when we say, well, you made me feel this way. Why did you make me feel this way? All the ways that we kind of do this. Now, there's a fine line between abusive dynamics and things like that, right? But even in abusive dynamics, the most powerful expression we can have is in the peace of it all. Like, we're in the chaos of the flaming fire of these emotions and what's arising and the triggers, but we're still within the peace of ourselves to then be able to express, oh, I feel this, and this is how I'm feeling, and this is what's arising, and this is what's here now. We're just constantly bringing attention to the present, to what's now, what's here, what's this sensation, what's this feeling, what's this perception. Constantly, boom, 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 boom. This is how we engage this whole entire practice we've been doing for over a year now in real time, like in specific with relational dynamics, right? But generally, we can only really do that. Only is a strong word, but we often can only do that when we've done this practice consistently. So there's two sides to this, right? We have to be willing to actually engage the practice individually on our own. And the more that we do that, the more prepared we are to engage relational dynamics, on some of the most charged of subjects, which there's endless amounts of those, in a way where we're not vomiting and projecting and creating unnecessary drama, but we're addressing things, right? It's very important that we address things in real time as much as we can in real time. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay, or the next day we bring it up, or maybe the next week or something. But the more we can, address these things in real time with people, and all of our relations, the better, right? Because we're not letting things linger. I mean, how much do we create our own turmoil by letting things relationally linger, for a period of time? And remember, just because we feel and we share what is present and what's here doesn't mean the other party or the other person is going to change their behavior, or going to give you exactly what you think you want right away, or whatever, right? Like, change anything about whatever it is that they're engaging in and doing. But we feel a million times exponentially better when we just simply express and share honestly. And paradoxically, it often does bring an impact in shifting potentially what the others are doing, or at least inspire them to also share how they are feeling, because now, someone took the first step, right? So yeah, so let's I don't know where that came from, but that's here today, and that's quite valuable, I feel, especially because we started with these topics about conspiracy, whatever, and these are generally quite triggering topics for people. They're very polarizing, right? Whatever the topic is. And we've had a lot of them in the past few years, especially, and we'll probably continue to have a lot more of them. So it's really good that we get proficient, in our ability to navigate these discussions, and these ways of how do we bring what we've been doing in this practice of acknowledging sensation into real-time interaction, relational expression. right? Because then that's what brings us into more and more alignment with our personal soul contract, our purpose, our artistic expression, our creative expression, because that's all of those things are. They're living authentically to what is actually being felt. So if there's separation between external, what is appearing to be external reality and our internal world, it's mainly happening because there's a lack of authenticity in expression, which is, has a lot to do with the throat, and the voice. So that was quite the intro, if we want to call that. So I hope that is clear. So any questions or comments on that, maybe we'll just give a moment for that right now, because we are going to go into meditation, and that was a lot of things. But I hope it's, it makes sense. Who's here? It's a lot of you. Oh, nice. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hey, bro.
How are you?
Doing good.
Yeah, if it's okay, if I could just share something.
Sure.
Yeah, I keep coming back to this idea lately of almost like there's like too much talking, like too much noise. Like this keeps coming up in me whenever I'm just I don't know, hanging around certain people, just listening to certain subjects that are coming up or whatnot. And just reflecting on what you were just speaking about addressing things, as they arise and being authentic in the expression. I was just thinking about my sister this morning, and I was thinking to myself for a moment. I was like, oh, but she's difficult to talk to, and she's not open to what I have to say, and or whatever, and then I just stopped for a second, and I was like thinking to myself, like, I actually don't even have a desire inside of myself for her to even understand how or what she's making me feel, because inside of me, I'm actually very capable of being present with her with whatever she's feeling. And what I notice about myself is sometimes in the past, whenever I would come into this place of needing her to hear what I have to say, I'm actually diminishing my ability, or I'm diminishing my power in that moment. Because if I look at her discomfort that came up, or her pain, or whatever she just projected onto me that was like, whoa, big in the moment, I'm actually able to parent her through that in the way that my father was not able to parent her or us through that. And that diffuses everything in that moment. Because if I go up to my sister and I say, well, you're making me feel this way, I already know that her inner child is going to bring it back to her. I like it, in the end, if we're talking about family, and it might be different with other people. But I was just thinking about that this morning. And I was like, also thinking about how I've been going for advice to other people on certain topics whenever I actually already know deep down inside my own answer. But I'm going to other people for advice, and they're giving me advice based on their own life experience and their own perspective. I've adopted that advice only for it to blow up in my life or not go well, or for it to steer me back to myself. So I was just reflecting on all of this, and this idea of not sitting in power fully, let's say in certain instances, bringing me back to this topic of noise and too much noise and too much talk. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because it just makes me think of a few years ago, I was at work. I had deleted by accident like over 80 medical files on a computer. And when I deleted these files, like inside of myself, like I panicked, I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, like my boss is going to kill me. So I started pacing in the office, and I was in an office by myself. So then I just laid on the ground. I just laid on the ground and I was like, okay, how do I get him to respond in the way that I want him to respond? Because I can't deal with the nightmare that's going on in my head right now. I'm like, he's going to fire me. He's going to whatever. How do I get him to behave in the way that I want him to behave? And so then I just thought to myself, well, I'm going to speak to him in the way that I would want to be spoken to. So if I were in his position, what would I expect from my employee? And so then I stopped and I was like, okay, I'm going to see if there's a solution for me to retract these files, if I can get them back. So I did a bunch of research. I found that I could, but they would be all encrypted and broken. And anyways, it would be a mess. It was possible for me to buy this like software to like actually get it back properly, but that would cost a lot of money. And then I could also actually come to work on the weekend unpaid. And I just realized that the actual physical medical files still exist. So I could actually go in the hospital, go find those files, sit down in an office, scan them, and put them all back on the computer. So I was like, okay, there's solutions. So my panic can ease a bit. So I ended up meeting with my boss and I said, hi, so-and-so. I just wanted to speak to you for a few moments because I made a mistake. I made an honest mistake. And however, I thought about potential solutions to rectify what I have done. And he was like, okay, what are these solutions? And so I told him the solutions and he was like, okay, sounds good. So just let me know whenever you're in the office and yeah, we'll log that in so that like security or whoever knows that you're here, and all is well. And then when he walked away, I was like, wow, that was not anywhere near as bad as I thought it would be. And yeah, that makes me reflect on my sister. And it's just like, when I take the time to develop that stillness and that awareness within me and practice it, you know, on a regular basis, I can approach the people in my life with that same compassion and calmness. And therefore, as I emanate that, I should be able to receive that in return. But also, if I'm not immediately receiving it in return, I should be able to navigate through that turbulence. So yeah, as I was thinking about my sister this morning, and I'm just like, oh, but she's this and she's that. I'm like, all of this is taking my energy away. That thought alone is taking my energy away. But if I just sit in my already knowing of how to navigate this and hold her, then I'm already in my undisrupted flow, I guess. So yeah, I just wanted to share this.
Great, man. That's so great. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Yeah, what a great practical example for everyone on that topic. And what was reflected when you're sharing is honest communication. If we're really being honest with ourselves, we're walking emanations of source, right? Like when we understand ourselves as who we are at the core, we could say, oh, I'm this embodiment of my higher self or of God's source in individuated form or whatever the term, but we understand the sacredness and divine nature of who we are at the core. And when we come back to things like the virtues or various other precepts that define what does it mean to be godly or righteous in our expression. So when we say, how would we honestly share like some of these examples that everyone is using, like what do I actually want in this moment? Well, what we're doing is we're actually coming back to the true nature of who we actually are and how this true self actually is designed to express or to be. That's what it means to be honest. Because we're not, when we're expressing as this lower egoic self that's traumatized and harmed and feels victim and all that, we're not actually being honest to who we actually are. We're not expressing as the honest version of ourselves. We're expressing as all of these other versions that we think we are. So self-honesty is coming back to that. And in the same light, in the expression of, like what Evan was saying about like treating someone as you desire to be treated, the golden rule, or this, what is this really expressing? Well, it's expressing that when you're in front of some other being, you're in front of the divine, like you're in front of God itself, and you're expressing to God source, as you would to God, to if you came in front of what, maybe most people on the planet think is God, is this big white man or something like that, like, and that's a lot of what, I guess like guru culture is, right? Is it's an image, like in Christianity, I have Jesus or Buddha or this, it's an image to give an example of if Jesus or Buddha or, God or some guru or whatever was in front of you, how would you act to them? But then that can be related to anyone who's inspiring to you, where when we're around certain people, we may feel like we want to act in, more like tip-top ways, more loving, compassionate ways, because they elevate us to that example. But then as we mature on the path, we're not looking for that higher inspiration to give us the excuse to act in a particular way. We're willing to act in that way with anybody because we see any of them as equally divine as anyone else, equally as God as anyone else. And thus the expression of, like how Evan described it, with this compassion and true honesty and patience, understanding, all of these things become a natural, emanation, right? As we see everything as it, and before us, everything is it. Everything's before us, appearing as source or whatever the term. So this is what arose when you shared that, Evan, but thank you. That was very nice.
I was just thinking in this moment, Corey, you shared something not too long ago about, if you're dealing with a child, treat that child as though it were your child, or this person your age as though they were your brother and sister, or this older person as though they were your parent or your grandparent. And right now I'm just thinking on, like, sometimes we encounter an adult, and even though they're in an adult body, they may be giving off, I don't know, or operating from this place of a childhood wound inside of themselves. So in that moment, I may be around somebody that's my age, but I can also like step into my father and, kind of be almost like a parent to them in that moment, even though they're my age. Or if I'm around somebody, and like, depends what the lesson is, it depends what they're bringing out in you. But I've also been thinking about this stuff too lately. It's kind of like, who brings out what in me and why? Because sometimes I find that operating out of a certain place with certain people is like one of the things that's coming up right now is humor, how a lot of people hide behind humor, and how I feel like in a way there's no more room for that, from my perspective, from what I see. But it's kind of like, my neighbor will do that often, but I don't, like, inside of me, like, it doesn't feel right for me to then go and engage in the humor with him. Like, it doesn't feel good to me. I don't feel like I need to be doing that or anything. So I kind of go very calm inside of myself, and I bring it more serious, but in a very subtle way, in a very gentle way. And it just brings out the absolute best in the situation. Because I feel like I go into my authentic expression, and it brings him into his authentic expression. There's no veil, there's no hiding behind humor or bringing humor to a situation or whatever. Yeah, kind of drifting off a bit, but yeah, kind of like, when people greet us in life, like, people of all ages, it's kind of like, what aspect are they bringing out, and sharing in that aspect that they're bringing out? Is it my inner child? Can I engage in being, like, young and playful with them? Is it like my adolescent? Is it my adult? Is it, so I'm just kind of like, I'm in that right now. I'm kind of trying to be present in all of that.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand. Cool, man. That's a great reflection. Oh, wonderful. Well, this is nice. Yeah. Great topics there diving into. I don't yeah, I mean, if there's anything else, maybe we'll go into it afterwards. I want to get into this simple practice and meditation. I kind of have a feeling where it's going to navigate, so we'll see how it unfolds. But let's engage in a little bit of this inquiry. And there's some great topics here, so I think we'll just take a moment to rest into these topics, not so much and not solely intellectually, but just inquiring to the sensations or the felt realities that are here. So we can just find a comfortable position or lie down, seated, eyes open or closed, it's all good. But sometimes eyes closed just naturally give us that space to kind of turn off the sight sensations and sensory experience, and we can come inward and simply come to see and look at what's here now. Often we think we need to go into some deep place, or deep, just this term deep, we got to go into the depths of something to find what we're looking for. But really, it's already here. It's right as we are. It's exactly where we are. And as we come to rest in what's here, the body can actually come to rest as well. So you feel that kind of wave of compassion and gentleness that runs down through the top of the head, down through the facial structure and the shoulders and the back, the spine, the rib cage and the organs, into the pelvic region, just kind of relaxing there. Down into the thighs and the legs and the knees. Calves down to the feet. And in that, and in being with what's here, naturally there may be some inquiries or topics or charges or energies that are present. So we'll simply give some silent space to this for a moment. And we may naturally find ourselves aware and observant of the breath. And if we require a further clarity in the body and just kind of finding that equanimity and balance where we are, the breath can be ever so useful in that. And we can focus on just really slowly breathing in through the nose, about 5 to 8 seconds or longer. And in our own time, exhaling through the nose with the same length or a bit longer than the inhale. Just in and out through the nose and feeling that gentle kind of inner breeze, if you will. Because we're breathing beyond just the lungs. It's as if we're breathing in through the skin, 360 degrees. So every direction, this energy is kind of coming through us, like the body's translucent, coming right through us and expanding in every direction, and then releasing and calming and bringing that gentle peace and balance. We can continue at our own pace. Sometimes just a few breaths is enough to activate the natural flowing energy and the emanation of almost like a pale silver or diamond light, like filaments of diamond crystals that are kind of moving all around you. And sometimes there's like pastel frequencies and colors that circulate through the body and around you like a flame. And you can feel these oscillating. This can expand far greater than just the physical body in every direction. And this can help us kind of work through sometimes initial layers of inner chatter in the template or in the mind, chatter that may not be relevant to the deeper inquiry that we'd like to focus on, or particular subjects that we're called into. But this breath is just a breath of peace. We're breathing this peace through every crevice of the body. And as we do so, this may naturally bring us into particular charges or things that are just holding a certain position in our consciousness, something that's just holding our attention. And this is where we can bring the focus, a very direct and piercing focus, yet compassionate focus, into these particular regions, often in the anatomy, but we can feel this within the entirety of our field. It's not always in the body. It could be a particular subject or topic, and just by way of placing our attention and focus on it, it's like we begin to zoom into it. And this enhances our perception of it. And as the zooming happens, this is sometimes how different layers of epiphany or insight, true insight, honest inquiry begins to be revealed on any particular subject, or just the core and essential subject of who am I? What is the nature of myself or this moment, or my connection to God's source? So we'll leave some silent space for this. Oftentimes this inquiry and this focused inquiry reveals a spaciousness within particular subjects that may have held previously a particular density or strength in a charge or an energy that's present. And so when we zoom in, we start to reveal the spaciousness or the nothingness, that original essential nature that makes up everything. And we can come to rest within the peace of that knowing. The knowing in something that's beyond the mind or what's conceivable, beyond all these insights and epiphanies and understandings and knowledge, but a fundamental foundational knowing that's not tied to any one thing in particular. An essential fabric, an essential piece that pervades all subjects, all knowledge, all perceptions, all ideas, all experiences, manifestations. So we're coming to know ourselves, our individual identity, as this foundational knowing. And the strength of this is that all arising experiences and perceptions, sensations, feelings, thoughts, ideas, beliefs, these are not adding or taking away from this fundamental foundational knowing. And thus they can be explored and played with in a more gentle, free-flowing, less attached way, but yet also engaged because we're not afraid of them. There's no fear that arises from them. And if there is, we can repeat the same process by investigating what is actually there at the core of this apparent charge or energy or emotion. So as this is repeated again and again and again, we come to a more visceral felt sense of this knowing through the body. Often it can emanate through the heart, through the gut, through the higher heart region, and expand through every direction of the body. You feel these running currents of energy. And a mountain-like peace or stability foundation. Residing within this peaceful awareness, any and every topic, any and every theme or perspective or charge can be perceived in the same way, be fearlessly investigated and acknowledged as what it truly is, which is the same one source of energy, the same arising energy in many different forms. And so we can retain and rest within this peace, even within the apparent pains of a physical body or pains of emotion or relational dynamics or situations. Everything can be held within this peace. Everything can return back to this peace and naturally, essentially be neutralized or brought to rest. And there's a certain patience with this because we don't need to rush out of pain or run away from pain or try and numb pain. Pain can be an equal part of our experience as pleasure because they're all held within the same apparent container of this peace, this gentle compassion, this strength. We can connect with the breath once again if we like, and just take a few breaths and expand this attention to the physical room that we're in, the spaciousness of physical objects around us, so the chair, the couch or bed underneath us, floor, sensations. Just expanding this peacefulness, this attention everywhere. Of course, it's only here anyways. It's always here. Some of us may feel complete here and desire to open the eyes, or maybe just still rest in this stillness of the body, but with the eyes open. Sometimes this can be nice as we kind of embody ourselves into this dimension, knowing that this peace is in no distant place. It's exactly where we are. It's not separated by spiritual dimension or physical dimension or anything of the sort. Some may feel called to continue in whatever process you're in, which is also a few moments with that. So if there's any questions or comments or reflections, feel free to write that in the chat. Yeah, coming to know this foundational or essential nature. Essential, when we say essential nature, we're saying what is the foundational, most fundamental building block of what appears as creation, or our creation, or this moment, or this, or whatever this is. What is the essential nature? So the most fundamental core fabric. And it's even beyond something that can be defined. When we really explore it, we start to see that it's an unutterable, nature, unutterable thing, which is, what we could say source is. And so as we come to know this and come to remember this and realize this, even just in a simple meditation such as this, what comes with that are the attributes of it. We experience the attributes of what cannot really actually be even voiced, which is the peace of God, the compassion of God, this expansion of knowing. Because when we say we know something, there's a confidence with which comes with that, a strength. So when we come to rest within this knowing, which isn't always something we can conceive or voice, but it's known, there's a confidence, a strength, like an unmovable mountain-like sense, and often associated with peace, right? That's felt. So that is the essential nature. So if everything is essentially this at the core, then it's just a remembrance of this perpetually, so that when we're investigating things or engaging dynamics, or in the relational sense that we brought up a lot today, we're never, it's not we're never afraid, but we understand what is the fearless attitude in engaging these topics or these subjects or these experiences and all of that, because of that knowing foundationally. Right? We keep coming back to it to reinforce that remembrance, and then abide in that remembrance and that realization, oh, this is who I actually am. So then when we come to explore all of the relative workings of our process, which is eternal and very intimately different for each of us, we can explore them from that place with that attitude. And we wouldn't, if we know ourselves as this eternal nature, we're not going to be fearful or worrying or all of this. And even if that arises, we're still coming back to what's underneath that and underneath that and underneath that, but we're still persistent in our willingness to explore all of these different scenarios and subjects, and just living our life. Really, that's what it is. I mean, because life just endlessly presents us with opportunities to where we have to embody or exemplify this knowing. It's one thing to come to know this in a meditation such as this. It's another thing to It's not really another thing, but it appears to be another thing when we're engaging within life, all these different types of situations. So yeah, it's important to remember that. And I was having a simple discussion with a friend recently, and I was just he was asking me about my time in India with a particular teacher that I had at that period, and that was very much what I needed at that time, or what I thought I needed at that time. And part of the message that I was constantly hearing from that teacher was just do your practice, just do your practice, just do your practice. And that was many years ago, and that stuck with me for a long time. And it stuck with me also as how I also share or look to teach others is just there's nothing else but going back to the practice. Just doing your practice solves everything. It answers all questions. It brings all the goods, all the goods that you're looking for, whatever that is in your life. It's going to come back from engaged practice, engaged living, engaged experience. Nothing can replace that. No amount of question and answer, no amount of watching of things or reading or whatever. If those things are pointing you to practice, then yes, but it's always that. And every time I would assume you come, to these sessions or another session or just do your own session, you remember that almost instantaneously. You know what I mean? Like you can have a off day or off week or this or that, then you come back to whatever practices feel good to you almost instantly, or within a few moments. It's like a remembrance, like coming home again, like, oh yeah, wow, this is what I forgot about this past week or past day or whatever, and how simple and how easy it is, right? But we need that reminder, or at least we think we do, and until we don't, then we do. So it's all good, right? Yeah. So practice makes perfect. Nice. So yeah, that feels pretty good. I'll see if there's any other topics that want to come up today. We covered a lot. Sometimes I just like to do a recap of what I've been posting. I haven't been posting much, but I have a lot of discussions with people, in private, and they're very similar, across the board. We're all kind of experiencing all the same things a lot of times in infinitely different forms. It's funny how that works, right? So we have to stay connected to each other, right? When we are connected to each other, we can reflect these ideas and share these perspectives in balanced ways, and that's how we integrate with each other. It's always important, we come together, even just with one person, it's fine. Honesty, authenticity, humor, and practice. Thank you. Yeah, these are some great terms, yeah, from today. Yeah, wonderful. All right, well, I feel pretty good with that. Gonna leave the link for donations for those that feel called. That's always appreciated. Not sure about next week. They'll kind of go into flow. I'm kind of getting back in momentum a little bit with some postings and these types of things. I was attending some projects and getting back into this writing a lot this week too. So we'll see how next week unfolds. But just make sure you're watching on Facebook, Instagram. Usually it's a day or two before I'll announce it. I think that works best for the time being, and you'll get the email through the notification, because I just basically changed the same. I just keep re-editing the same event, so you're all like pre-registered at least, which I think you all know. Yeah, outside of that, I feel good. I hope you all have a beautiful day and enjoy yourself and each other. And if any other questions pop up or desire for one-on-one time, just send me a personal message. But feels good. See ya.